Welcome to the continuing story of Oscar's teen years. In this episode, we find Oscar and Eric at the boarding school in Moonlit Falls. Little Owen Oxley is one of 5 werewolf toddlers who are currently learning their toddler skills at the boarding school. It turns out that after returning the wolf family to their home, the boarding school has been left with nobody older than a teen living in it. So we've got a household of teens and younger Sims. Zach Durwood was one of the local teens staying at the boarding school at the moment. He stepped in to rescue that flower pot from little Owen. And then he did something that worried me greatly. While still carrying little Owen, he jumped into a taxi and headed off for the local hospital. I don't know who he was visiting. It might have been somebody who wanted to see baby Owen. You never can tell with Sims. I immediately panicked. I hope he doesn't put him down somewhere inside a rabbit hole. But after he left the hospital, while still carrying little Owen, he went to the diner. I was feeling a little bit more relaxed about it by now. As Zach walked into the diner, Rainflower Ivy came out and just stood there. After a brief visit to the diner, Zach's next stop off was back at home and still carrying little Owen. So all was good in the end, and Owen sat and cuddled his imaginary friend. I sent Zach out the back to pick a fruit from the tree of prosperity. He needed to get some skills quickly. Even random skills would help. Then he worked on his collecting skill. There's plenty of spawners in the backyard of this version of the boarding school. And there's usually things there for the young residents to catch or collect. Zach hasn't been at the boarding school for very long, so his education is being very disorganised. Just so long as he learns a few things, doesn't end up being completely devoid of skills, and he'll be going back home very soon. He's not doing any formal training in any particular skills. I'm just trying to get him to learn something. It's time for the werewolf toddlers to go home. The first to go home are the 3 Oxley siblings, Owen, Oscar and Olive. Their parents are Phil and Glory Flower, and that green thing on the bench is a large skull-cut Tiberium. I just thought I'd show that to you. I've now completely forgotten how to make the skull-cut gems. Is some special combination of gems that you put on the large Carter's display case and transform it. And I did that and I got my skull-cut Tiberium, and then I haven't done it since, and so I've now forgotten because it happened a few years ago. Just having a quick look around the house belonging to the Oxley family. There's 2 Oxley families. This is Phil Oxley's household. He was the original. I accidentally put a copy of him into this world and renamed the copy Eddie and made him into Phil's brother, and Eddie is the father of the other 2 werewolf toddlers. We'll see with them at home shortly as well. And Phil Oxley was the first werewolf I ever made once the Supernatural expansion pack was released. I played in this household for quite a long time, and then I just abandoned them. I think we'll see Phil doing a bit of gardening here. This huge messy garden, of course, is giving me big problems, so I deleted the whole thing, so there was no garden left. And then I moved this house to a different world, and then I came back here and I bulldozed it to try to make Moonlit Falls run a bit better. The world that I moved both of these 2 Oxley families to was made by Reflong 7 and its Twikiki Island. And I've aged the toddlers up to child, and I've made all of their imaginary friends real. We'll probably see them all in another episode. The Phil Oxley home has a huge basement where they do most of their living, but the house on the outside above ground is quite small. You wouldn't think there was so much stuff going on underground now, would you? Now we meet Phil's brother, Eddie Oxley. He's in werewolf form and he's carrying his little daughter, Jane. She's just come home from boarding school and she's learned all of the skills now, read all of the toddler books. He's going out to pick up his little son now. There he is. That's Wayne. These 2 toddlers had been toddlers for probably 5 or 6 real life years, and they hadn't learnt any skills, and I kept thinking, I need to go and get those Oxley toddlers and train them, and I've finally done it. Phil and Eddie are both excellent fathers and take great care of their little toddlers. There's Eddie, just changed little Wayne. He's going to take him inside now. He'll be pleased to have his toddlers home from boarding school. We'll go downstairs and have a look at them, what they've got below ground. The house above ground is pretty empty. Before the toddlers were born, Eddie and his wife, Chris, went to the future world, Oasis Landing, and they spent a long time there collecting and gathering things, and their basement is just packed full of things that they found and collected in the future. They've also got a huge garden, which I eventually deleted. There's Chris. She's not a werewolf, she's a human. She's going to ask him to turn into human form. She doesn't really like it when he's in werewolf form. Anyway, we'll have a quick look around there downstairs and you'll see some of the things that they collected in the future. So there's Eddie in his human form. He looks quite different. Chris seems happier to talk to him now. I wonder how she'll cope when the toddlers are old enough to go into werewolf form. I suppose by then she'll have their 2 imaginary friends made real, so she won't be totally outnumbered with just her against 3 werewolves. It'll be her and 2 imaginary friends against 3 werewolves. They went adventuring in the World Adventure Worlds as well, and they've been busy on the Scraptronic workbenches making things, collecting lots of nanites when they're in the future, and making things on the bot building machine. Yes, they've got lots of stuff that they brought back with them from various places. Since I left the toddlers at home at Phil and Glory's place alone, there was no adults at home. I thought I'd better go to see if I could find them, and I found Glory sitting in the bar in her wedding dress. Could not believe it. Hello, that's Edith Parker Webb. She's married to Dave Webb. They've been together for years. I didn't realise they already had a toddler when I decided to pollinate her to give them at least one child. And it turns out that they already had one. Not to worry, we'll be moving them to another world as well shortly. Back at the boarding school, there are more young Sims to move back to their homes. This huge garden in the boarding school basement has got to be causing problems in Moonlit Falls as well. So Zach can develop some gardening skill and help them remove lots of plants and do some gardening, harvesting and weeding, whatever it takes until I decide he can go home. I don't think he'll get to level 7 in gardening though. I'm trying to get Eric's gardening skill up a bit as well. I don't really have much of a garden back in Moonfall Island, although he's been in several boarding schools in his lifetime. He's been here before when he was only a toddler. That would be Zach's sister, Zoe Durwood. Zoe's been here for ages and she's developed all the skills she needs, but Zach was added as an afterthought, so he is pretty short on skills. But I'm not going to keep him here for him to develop all of the skills that they usually develop. He'll just get a bit of a smattering of skills, and I'll leave that to him for later times, for him to maybe learn something later on in the game if he comes across Eric and Oscar in their travels. You never know. Greg Craig returned to Moonlit Falls with the others to go back to his parents, but they've moved. They're not in Moonlit Falls anymore. I'm going to go and have to look for them before I can return him to his home. Poor little Greg. He went off to boarding school and his family moved to a different world and left no forwarding address. After returning the Durwood siblings to their home in Moonlit Falls, Greg travelled back to Moonfall Island with Oscar and Eric. We'll have to set out a search party to try to find where his family have moved to. They arrived at the base camp in Moonfall Island and then made their way down the road to the boarding school, which was just at the end of the street that the base camp was in. I left the boys at the boarding school in Moonfall Island and I picked up Isabel Howe. Isabel set off on her quest to find Greg's parents, and the first place she visited was the Isle of Sims 3. and she stayed in a little beach residence while I've searched around town to see who was living in the Isle of Sims 3 and recording them on my spreadsheet. A thorough search revealed no sign of Greg's parents, but we did find some of Eric's relatives, so we can expect Oscar and Eric and Suzanne to visit the Isle of Sims 3 at some stage during future episodes. As having a little flyover, this is quite a small world, there's not many Sims in it. There was 43 Sims living in this world, and one of them, a little toddler, was sent back to the boarding school in Moonfall Island with Isabel when she returned. It was a toddler who was about to age up and she had no skills. I also discovered to my shock and horror that I had not set the aging for foreign Sims to be not aging. So lots of my children and toddlers suddenly aged up to the next level without me getting the opportunity to teach them any skills. The Coffee family is one of 3 households related to Eric in this world, and that is Gabe, one of their family plumbots. And this is Fran. She is Eric's aunt by marriage. Her husband is Gary, and Gary is the brother of Eric's father, Percy. Gary and Fran have 2 little toddlers. Little Louis Flower is about to do something I've never seen a toddler do before. He's hungry, and there's a fairy house next to him, and he's going to go into it autonomously to eat pollen punch. I've had a good look around the world. Now it's time for us to go back to the boarding school on Moonfall Island. I did find some other households that are related to Eric. They are the Steele household, which is just one Sim, Craig Steele. He is Eric's half-uncle. His parents are Christopher Steele and Patience. And I found Gabby Finnegan with her family, and Gabby was Gabby Coffey, and she is the full sister of Eric's father, Percy. She has 2 children. She's married to Aaron Finnegan from Dragon Valley. And I also found the Henry Hansen family. And Henry is one of Eric's half-uncles. He is one of Patience's first 5 children, whose father was Marty Hansen. Marty has since remarried and had another family of his own, so Eric is not related to all of the Hansens. It's a long walk back to the road where she can catch a taxi. This little toddler that she's carrying is Chrissy Costello, and she's about to age up to child, and she's got no skills at all. Actually, most of the toddlers, there's only 5 toddlers in this world, and they've all got no skills, so I don't know why I'm only taking one home. I think the main reason was the boarding school was already so full that I didn't think we could actually fit an extra 5 toddlers into it right now. But I will have to get the toddlers from this world and take them to the boarding school before I spend much time in this world. And this world is, of course, the Isle of Sims 3, and it was made by Reflong 7. There's several of her worlds in this big game, so we're going to be seeing more of them. It looks like Eric and Suzanne and Oscar are going to be visiting this world a few times in future episodes. I mean, the whole episodes will be only in this world. Let's have a quick look around, see what we can see. Looks like they've got hidden islands, and there's probably dive lots here as well. If I find there are no dive lots, I can easily add a couple if I decide I need them here. They're not difficult to do, just a bit time consuming. I do have a video telling you how to do them if you want one. That old chap walking along there with his cane, I think that is Aaron Finnegan, Gabby's husband, and he's the father of 2 of Eric's cousins, because Gabby, of course, is the sister of Eric's father, Percy. Gabby's parents are Patience and Gabias. Looks like we've almost arrived at the spot where she can catch a taxi, so she'll be flying home with little Chrissy. I think I forgot there are subways in this world, so the taxi won't take her directly to the airport. She'll have to stop off and catch as many subways as possible. It always takes such a lot longer to get anywhere when there's subways in a world. So here we are heading off back to Moonfall Island, and I have a feeling that I'm going to have to take a lot of the current occupants of this boarding school and move them back to their homes to make room for new Sims that need to be trained with some skills. When Isabel and Chrissy arrived at the boarding school, there were 19 Sims in the building. That is a few too many for smooth gameplay. Chrissy got straight to work learning some toddler skills, and Oscar came to help her. He came to play with Chrissy when she was learning her peg box skill.
See me Coleman? Casita Voni? Yes, Runa.
Now Gavin Flower was ready to go home, so I sent him home to live with his adopted father George Flower. Gavin is a clone of George, so I thought he might as well adopt him and look after him as he grows up. And Gavin quickly got to work and put his imaginary friend Rags out on the floor, and Rags became live. Now we have to get Rags to become real. And after his makeover, Rags became Ray. And now the two little boys are going to be the best of friends and grow up together. Except there was another doll in Gavin's inventory. This one was called Bobo. And I guess it had better be made real as well. I was a little bit flummoxed here, wondering how it got there. And because it wasn't there before, suddenly appeared. So I thought, well, we've got a second doll, we better make it real, and that's what we did. And I've brought Chrissy into this household because she'll just be sitting around doing nothing in the boarding school, and she is here to learn. We want to get her back to her parents before she starts school. So George is doing the right thing and teaching her to walk. George has got white wings now. They used to be the same colour as Gary's wings, or even more of a red. Gary's are a little bit orange. Luckily, Gary made lots of potions when he was back at the boarding school, and he has got the imaginary friend metamorphism potion, which is just given to Bobo, and then we'll give Bobo a makeover as well. And after his makeover, Bobo becomes Bart. And here they are, Ray and Bart, the two little imaginary friends, made real and made over. There's George sitting over there reading. Let's go upstairs and see what they're up to. This is the bedroom area and the playroom. And the school bus has arrived, but Isabel has obviously come over here to check on them. She's not a member of this household, but she's certainly making herself at home. If you watched the videos that I made a few years ago now of the colourful mermaids, well, then you will recognise quite a few of the mermaids in this story, because George was in it and he had his red wings then. Gary was a baby and then a toddler in that series of videos as well. Yes, those pair are having some fun together. He's just given her chattering teeth. They're going from becoming friends to becoming enemies, and then becoming friends, and then becoming enemies. I think he's trying to get her attention somehow. I don't think they've met before. She just came over to check on the kids, I'm assuming. I found her in the house when I got here. She's just gone into a bedroom. I wonder what's going to happen next. I just got to stick around and watch this. It could be rather entertaining, I think. Uh-oh, they're still arguing. Oh, she's smacking his face. He's not happy. I'm having fun watching their antics. She better be careful. He's a fairy. He's got some power. She's just a human. And she just slapped his face. I guess she can't give him chattering teeth back, can she? And he did do that to her, so maybe he deserves it. Now they're being friendly. I think I shall leave them to it. We're here to get these kids all sorted out so we can move on to the next household. Got to get that boarding school emptied. Eventually Isabel went back to the boarding school and George remembered his duties. He's got to teach little Chrissy her skills, and now she's learning to talk. After the boys came home from school, they had to do their homework, and then they relaxed a bit with toys before they got down to the hard work of learning their child skills. Of course, the imaginary friends, they miss out on the toddler skills, so they're going to have to make sure that they do their blocks and cooking skills, and as many other skills as they can squeeze in before they turn into teenagers. But we will leave this household now and head off back to the boarding school. We'll take some more young Sims home to their families. Petal and the two little mermaids have been sent home to Mia Azul's house on the beach. Petal has pulled her imaginary friend, Cosmo, out of her pocket, and Cosmo has become live. I suspect we're going to have to make it real now. Fortunately, she's got plenty of potion in her pocket. She's just got to get more friendly, probably. But that won't take long, and if it does, we don't have to watch the whole process. They seem to share an interest in art. Maybe it's time for that potion. Yes, they're becoming very good friends. I think they've got to be very good friends before the imaginary friend will take the potion. And by the way, this is not the boarding school. They have now been moved to their home, and they're making their imaginary friends real if they're in their permanent home. And Cosmos just drank the potion, and she's turned into a little girl named Coco. And Coco's going to get a makeover shortly because somebody else has got an imaginary friend that they want to make real, and that would be Sandy Seaworth. Now Sandy Seaworth, he is a clone of Salty Seaworth, but we haven't found Salty Seaworth at the moment. He was with them, but he seems to have vanished out of the game altogether. And Sandy's imaginary friend's name is Rags, and now he's got to work on their friendship. Their friendship's pretty high, so they won't have to talk for long before Rags will take the potion that Sandy's got in his pocket. If you remember in earlier episodes, the children spent a lot of time working on making potions. I think most of them can actually make all 10 potions now. Eventually, Sandy offers the potion and Rags takes it and becomes Richard, and he's ready for his makeover. And there he is. It turns out little Richard is a hot-headed perfectionist who loves to swim. He always seems to look really cranky or angry. I think he should be quite entertaining. After a while I started changing some of their traits, but at this point I was still accepting whatever traits the game had given them. Yes, Sandy loves to conduct court. There's always one in the household that does that all the time. Now that's Pat. He is Mary Azul's imaginary friend made real, and I've just discovered by looking at him in the background playing with his imaginary friend. Now how he got an imaginary friend, I have no idea. I didn't give it to him. I've also since discovered that imaginary friends just generate all by themselves. So I gave up on my idea of making all of the imaginary friends real, because as soon as I've got them all made real, suddenly they're whipping new imaginary friends out of their pockets. It's really quite annoying. There's Coco still sitting at the computer, but now she's had her makeover. We'll get a better look at her in a minute. And here are all of the children in the household, all lined up from left to right. They are Mary and Pat Azul, Richard and Sandy Seaworth, Coco and Petal Jane. And there are 2 young adult females or adults in the household. That would be Mia Azul and Sarah Jane. Now Sarah Jane is the adopted mother of Petal, because Petal was picked in a different game altogether. She came to us from the Perfect Genetics Challenge. And of course the one on the left is Mia Azul, and Mary Azul is a clone of Mia Azul, and Pat is Mary's imaginary friend made real. Richard is Sandy's imaginary friend made real, and Sandy is a clone of Salty Seaworth. And then there was Coco, who is the imaginary friend made real belonging to Petal. So that's the entire household. But there will be one more, because Pat has got his imaginary friend that he acquired very sneakily. I don't know how he got it, but we're not going to allow it to stay in his pocket. He's going to get it made real. And of course, Pat himself is still in need of a makeover. Here's Sandy back doing court. I've discovered something interesting about it when they conduct court, or when they, in another household, there were two Sims working on their cooking skill in the toy oven, and they had their backs to the child who was holding court, and every time they cooked something, before they cooked the next item, they would turn around and bow to the Sim who was holding court. A bit later on, Coco and Sandy decided to have an indoor water balloon fight. All I can think of is cleaning up the mess, but they don't seem to make a mess. I guess that's one of the benefits of being a Sim. And there's Pat off in the background playing with his doll. I really must solve that problem. As Pat reads probably a fishing book, he's put his doll on the floor behind him. Hopefully it'll become live shortly. There it is, live. Now Pat can make it real. I noticed that Pat's doll is also named Pat. I'm sure somebody's made a potion for him, or Pat might even be able to make the potions, because we had him in the boarding school for a while. The two Pats need to work on their friendship before the new Pat will accept the potion from his owner. It turns out that Pat doesn't have a potion for his doll Pat, so I've asked Pat's previous owner, Mary Azul, to make a potion, and I've added a chemistry table. I think there's a bit of a bug going on here, because it looks very much to me as though both Pat and Mary can see this imaginary friend that's been made live, but it's not real yet. So if it's Pat's imaginary friend, he should be the only one that can see it. But Mary stopped, and she definitely can see it. She's reacting to it. I wonder what he fell over for. Seems to have fainted at her. Maybe he got a surprise because she could see him. You never can tell with these things. See, I can't see the imaginary friend when she's active, but she could definitely see him. So we'll leave it at this point, with Mary busily working on the potion to make Pat's imaginary friend real, and Pat and his now live imaginary friend Pat are spending quality time together to improve their friendship, so that the doll Pat can become a real Sim. Naturally, pillow fighting plays a large part in their getting to know you routine. Looks like that Mary is keeping her eye on that pair. I suppose she's wondering why her ex-imaginary friend, now that he's real, is having a pillow fight with an invisible entity of some sort. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been a while since I did a video of any type, and I'll be working on the next one very soon. Once the pillow fight was over, some of the little Sims went outside. They live in a house that's on the beach in Moonfall Island. They're at the opposite end of the island to the boarding school where the children have been living for the last few months, learning all their skills. And it's time for an early morning dip in the ocean before the school bus arrives to take them to school for the day. So we will leave them here having some fun at home before they go to school, and we'll pick up here in the next episode. So thank you for watching, and if you have enjoyed the video, it'd help me greatly if you were to give it a like and maybe even a comment. And bye bye for now, and happy simming. We'll see you in the next video.
Ha ha ha!